Hi, my name is Gaia Catalano. I am the Director of Client Services and Business Development here at Bold Health. And today I'm going to be connecting with one of our clinicians to discuss how we approach couples therapy here at the practice. So, Scott, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do here at Bold.
Sure. My name is Scott Phillips, and I'm an associate marriage and family therapist here at Bold Health who spends time working with couples and adolescents and individuals as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know for me, from my perspective, when I'm doing intakes with patients and they're calling, and it's a couple looking for therapy, usually by the time they're calling me and our practice, they're pretty in conflict. They're having a lot of issues within the marriage. And so I'm just wondering from like a therapist perspective, what you typically see when clients first come to you for couples therapy.
Yeah, I'd say it's really common in couples therapy. Obviously, when they come, they're already in conflict, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, one of their chief complaints that they're looking for help with is communication and how to communicate effectively.
Okay, so would you say that most of the conflict is partly like a breakdown in communication, or like how is it like an escalation in the communication? What would you say is what you see the most?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's both, right? There's obviously breakdowns in communication that happen, as well as, when tensions are high, right? When feelings get high, we can have a tendency to use poor communication with our partners that can then not only not be helpful in the conflict, but actually serve to escalate some of the issues above and beyond where they already are.
Right. So are there like particular patterns that you're looking for in communication styles that can lead to these types of escalations?
Yeah. So something that I look for that John Gottman actually kind of coined or started is the 4 horsemen. And these include sort of criticism, critical kind of speech, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And we can get more specific about those if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd love to hear if you could kind of just go through like, one, the first one, like criticism, for example, like if you could go through what that actually means and what that looks like in conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. So criticism is where we really, where we might attack our partner's character, right? Mm-hmm. And so this would look, instead of talking about a specific situation, we kind of make a character assassination or a generalized character assessment. And so this might look like something, instead of talking about a specific incident last week where one of the partners forgot to put away the dishes, right? It would be something like, well, you're always lazy. You never put the dishes away, right? It's this really generalized statement instead of sticking to the specifics.
Right. So it's like they attack their character versus just asking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so what would it look like so let's say that kind of criticism was going on, how would you advise a couple to kind of redirect the way they approach each other if criticism is one of the horsemen that they use?
Yeah, so it's really the most helpful thing for this is to really stick to the specific example, right? And I mean, throughout all of these, but this one included, right, it's always helpful to stick to how it affected you. Instead of attacking your partner, right, sticking how that affected you. So for this one, it might look something like, right, it really bothered me. It really upset me when you didn't put the dishes away on Tuesday last week, right? So really getting specific and instead of attacking them, kind of the impact that it had on you.
I see. Okay. And so what's another one of the horsemen that you often see?
So the next one that often defensiveness, and this would look like making excuses or blaming your partner, something to the effect of like, I'm always doing the dishes. You never help me. Right. Again, there's this really generalized character to it, mm-hmm. As well as kind of blaming them and defending ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so redirecting that, what would be like a more effective communication for that?
So a more effective communication, I mean, would be to have a conversation about the specifics again, right? And so like, and keeping it to ourselves, right? So it's would look like something like, yeah, it would be really helpful for me. I'd really appreciate it if we could find a way to divvy these tasks up or split these tasks up in a way that's more equal or more even. Can we kind of make some space to talk about that?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm seeing a pattern of always and never not really being great communication tools in arguing. Um, and so what's like a third one of the horsemen?
So the next one is kind of contempt, and this is actually one of the most toxic ones, is kind of taking this position of superiority. And this could look like sarcasm, eye rolling to some extent, and kind of putting down your partner. And this is really can be really damaging to relationships. And so like in an extreme version of this might look something like a child can do it. Like our 5-year-old child does a better job washing the dishes than you.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously not.
Not great. um, yeah, because then you're just like insulting somebody, right? And so
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
And so is what's the redirect for that?
So again, the redirect is really trying to keep it to how it affects you, right? And so this comes about often because something is really important to one of the partners, right? And they don't know how to communicate it effectively. So a way to do that would be, dishes being clean, our kitchen being clean is a really important thing for me, right? Can we really work together to wash the dishes fully before putting them away so we make sure they're clean, right? Again, trying to keep the focus on the importance of it to yourself. And how you the two of you can collaborate to achieve this goal.
Right. And so then what's the last of our horsemen?
So stonewalling. And so this is one where when anxiety gets too high, people just flood and kind of withdraw, right? Emotionally detach. And so this can come about like if we're having a conversation, you just see your partner going flat, or you notice yourself going flat or pulling back. And often this is not something done intentionally. Well, it's not done intentionally. It's done when anxiety gets too high, our body just kind of shuts itself down. And so that's the last one. And it can be quite destructive because then you're having a conversation with essentially a stone wall, right? And yeah.
And so how do you advise couples who have that type of communication style that they shut down? Like, what do you recommend?
So I think the first important thing to notice with this is that your partner is not doing it intentionally, right? It's a sign that anxiety is too high. And so with that understanding, I think can be really helpful initially. Just, okay, for whatever reason, their anxiety is high. This is not something they're doing purposefully to me.
Right.
And then obviously that indicates we need some time to let our anxiety down. And so just honestly taking a break from the conversation for a while until tensions can cool, returning. Yep.
So, I mean, I think all of these horsemen and the way you've described them and how they can escalate conflict make a lot of sense. But for a couple, like if this is how you're used to communicating or what you've learned in terms of how you communicate, how do they realistically break those patterns? Because, in my mind, I'm trying to envision myself with my partner having a conflict and then, responding and saying, well, you're stonewalling me right now, or, or you're criticizing, or you're being defensive. Like I don't know that in the heat of the moment that I might respond so positively to that.
Well, and you bring up a really important point that these can be used in an attacking manner, maybe not purposefully, right? But we can weaponize these things as well, right? And so these are best served, I think, for, again, recognizing our own behavior, right? Once we start, again, criticizing our partners or saying, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, even if that is what they're doing, even if they are stonewalling you or I think to your point, it isn't helpful because then obviously it's, again, just escalating the conflict more. So I think these are most helpful when we're trying to recognize our own behavior, noticing how we're using these, and going from there. Yeah.
So then if you're noticing, would you say that if a particular partner is noticing that these are certain behaviors that their partner is engaging in, right? That they're doing the self-recognition work, but then they're also still noticing that their partner is maybe struggling. Would you advise that it's best to kind of like table that and discuss it with you in couples therapy versus what's the best way to kind of address some of that?
Yeah. And so especially early on, that's usually a good idea, right? It is, having that neutral sort of person there to help facilitate those conversations can be quite, because, you have to think these are patterns that have been going on for years and years. And they're soft spots for us, right? And kind of we all have partners that even minor things kind of just hit us the wrong way and we overreact. And so it can be quite helpful to have that space. The other thing I often recommend to couples I work with is, yeah, like you said, whether waiting to come into a couple session or not, right, but to take a break from the conversation when tensions get really high, so that everybody can kind of cool off a little bit and come back. Because obviously all of these discussions are better when everybody's kind of anxiety is low, when we're thinking more rationally.
Mhm.
And so the general rule of thumb that I have for that is whoever requested the break, that both partners agree that, yeah, if one requests a break, that's perfectly okay. But then within, say, 24 or 48 hours, depending on what everybody agrees to, whoever requested the break, re-bring up the conversation so that all parties know, okay, we can take a break and we're going to have the conversation. It's not like we take a break and never circle back around to it.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today and taking the time to kind of break down couples communication. It's just always exciting to hear about how we work with our clients in the practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.